It has been a really busy couple of weeks. All the flooring has been replaced and repaired, and the new flooring, the 1910 flooring, that's been installed. The staircase has been started. All of the doors except one has been installed. The poly process for all the doors has been started. And last but not least, the entire timber frame on the interior has been completely sanded down, and we've started polying it. Well, let's just pick up right where we left off last week, which is filling this swath in right here with a mirroring effect of the beam above us. And the first step is to cut this little guy out. Obviously, we have a big cutout right here. We can't leave that. We have a large scorch mark here that just burned right down into the tongue and groove, so that can't be left or repaired. There's a stagger of a gap running along the wall. Another big scorch mark here, and another chunk missing there. All these things need to be addressed without it making it looking like it's a patch. In this spot over here, there's only 2 planks. And in order to get them to pop in there with the tongue and grooves mostly active, what I've decided to do is that where this one intersects this one, I've taken the back side of the groove out of this side so that I can put it in its place in a teepee form and snap it in. Let's see if it worked. So back like that. Like that. Comes out of the way. I will tell you that only worked because this floor is so incredibly gappy. You may be able to get away with doing that, but chances are you're gonna have to put a small bevel on the back side of the piece that has the tongue. Morning. Well, my concern about running out of lumber to finish this flooring is very, very valid. And so we have that swath by the door we were working on last night. And this is all I have left. Now I do have an idea, or slash ace in the hole, to finish all this section here, I think. Man, that's a big section. I don't know. It's getting a little sketchy. With it being Tuesday, the weekly video list launched, and Eric asked a question about the red paper that I'm putting down underneath the hardwood flooring. And so I'll take a moment to explain that. And no, Eric, I am not going to try to pronounce your last name. Not going to happen. Right, so red rosin paper is what it's called. You can get it at any lumber yard. I don't know if they sell them at big box stores or not, but you can look, I guess. So what it is just a shear layer between the subfloor and the flooring that you're putting in. And for hardwood flooring, it's really important because what it's going to do is it's going to eliminate a bunch of squeaking potentials, which I've talked about before, I believe. And let's see here. Underneath the flooring, you see how it has this cutout here, this bit of cove, and that's there also to help eliminate squeaking. But you still have this flat section and this flat section. Whenever you have something that's flat, or whenever you have wood that's flat and it rubs against another flat wood surface, you'll get a squeak. Yeah, there you go. By putting the rosin paper underneath, you create that layer to separate these flats from the subfloor, thus eliminating the squeak. And that's true for any end cuts, any long rips. I'm putting a 5-degree bevel on everything to prevent that squeak from happening. Another quick little tip for you. When installing any sort of tongue and groove, always nail through the tongue side. That gives you the most amount of cross section of meat to work with. If you try nailing through your groove, you only have this little bit of a nugget here holding that board down. You want to have as much as possible going in. Now, with that said, this floor is laid in this direction, where the tongues are all facing that way. Well, I need to go this direction. So what do? I simply just milled out a piece. You can mill out of whatever you want. Doesn't really matter. The same thickness as the tongue, but twice the depth of your groove. A little bit shy, just in case there's a milling issue. So this is 1/4 inch. So you take that, double it, 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch by 3/8 thick in this case. And then that is my new tongue that I've installed right here. So you set that in to the groove section that you wanted to change direction on. This plank here has a wicked curl to it. And so it's pushing out here and pushing out here. Now, I was just going to try to run it and then push this board into it and try to correct it. Well, the memory in this wood is just so violent that it is just not allowing me to accomplish what I'm trying to do. So, I've heard this technique called a slew of different things. We're just going to call it wedging. So, you put yourself a board against your wall. Now, this is a balloon frame, so there is no bottom plate right here. So make sure you're spanning at least 2 studs. I'm on 2. So I have one here and I have one here. And then you take a block, the total distance that you want to push your planks into it. And take your time. You don't need to be in a rush on this. You want it to, spread those wood grains and really massage it in here. Something even this hard, I'm going to consider, depending on how well it moves, if I'm going to leave it, go do something else and come back. Because if you do it too quickly, you can crack the board. Okay, now we're running into another problem. We're coming off the wall here. So now it's pivoting my plank off of this stud here and pushing in and starting to dent the wall. If I go any farther, it's just gonna blow through the sheetrock. So I'm about to cut this horn off and then put this into the corner. I really didn't want to do that because you can separate your corners. There's a lot of pressure on that. Holy cannoli. Now for the next magic trick. Well, that's 1 1/4 inch, as we will inlay a border strip So it gives a little bit more dimension to this space, makes it look a little prettier, if you will. And yeah, it solves all those problems. It's been an interesting hour or so. So, fan of the channel, Terry, swung by and dropped off this little guy. So, it's a flooring nailer, right? Super simple. Up to this point, it wouldn't have been helpful, but from this point on, it would totally be helpful. And that is so awesome that she swung by and dropped that off, and I can use it for a couple of days. Sweet. And I just talked to a buddy of mine who said he might be available to help me hang all the doors. So that's even better. And I'm hearing about some labor that's freed up for a couple weeks. So if I can figure it out, we might have some progress. So this is Matthew. He and I worked together building the custom luxury homes, and he was actually my foreman. And now he's here to help me just hang doors. And I cannot be more grateful to spend a Saturday with him just hanging out and hanging doors. It is such a relief to have progress happening on a house, and it's not just me. So, with that said, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it. And for, potentially giving me some labor later this week. Thanks, buddy. Because officially, we've run out of flooring. I don't have any of the original floor left to finish this space. The space we're talking about is right there, which I kind of figured we were gonna have an issue with. I didn't think we were gonna have that much space to cover, but I think we're okay. So back in 2013, I picked up a whole bunch of flooring that came out of a house over in Keysville, which is, I don't know, about an hour and a half from here. And it was a 1910 farmhouse. So this pile here, I have been storing at my house since then. We're gonna take all of this material, run it through the planer, so that way I don't gum up a sander or whatever, and save me a whole bunch of time later. I'm gonna have to cover it with cardboard because it'll be raw material, people walking through, viewing the house. And potentially, I haven't solidified it yet, I might have some help for a few days. Oh, well, it's about 8 o'clock, so that makes it about a 13-hour day. So I've had enough. I've been having a hard time reading a tape measure, and when that happens, you know it's time to hang it up. Well, lucky you. A little sneak peek of what the kitchen's gonna be like. So, this is what I had envisioned in my head. Right? Dishwasher here, sink, cabinet, range, a full vented hood to the exterior, which we'll have to, cut through the roof and do all that stuff later. This little cavity here stays empty because this cabinet gets pushed forward, because just on the back side of the range will be a raised bar top and, bar stools back here. And then you have a set of drawers that will be accessible to the little eat-in kitchen area right there. So that way whoever's cooking here can still interact with the humans that they're entertaining. So now I have to put all this stuff away, address any floor situation things that are going on, especially over here, and make sure that the layout for this is absolutely perfectly marked so that we can bring the heater in that's going in at the toe kick of this cabinet. So the stair nosing, it's a tricky situation when dealing with such narrow planks because you don't have a whole lot of meat to really work with here. So here's the procedure I'm using on this one. Now I have this extension of an overhang coming this way, and then I have the full normal nosing. So this piece here is cut back at an angle this way because the front of it would have been so huge with nothing underneath it holding it that it just wouldn't have worked. So I opted to cut this back, and I did a 45-degree mitered return here, and we'll clean up this edge a bit tomorrow. This is all glued and pinned together, so it'll be a nice strong connection. I also have this entire joint glued. This is glued, and now we're gonna glue this in. And on a piece of tongue and groove flooring, this end will have a tongue or a groove, and that end will have a tongue. Well, that doesn't really help me in this situation, so I went ahead and just milled a tongue or groove into the backside of this. So now we'll get that set in there, and we'll set this in here. But we have to be very careful not to disturb this. It's only held in with very small pins. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get this all glued up, and then we're gonna clamp it together. Let it set up overnight, and then we'll worry about nailing this guy in. It feels pretty good. I'll have to get the chisels in there to clean that up. Coming soon, we're gonna have a fair bit of traffic coming through here. I need to support this nosing. So I think I'm gonna just grab something to shove under here before we go to do this actual stairs, just to help hold that. I really don't want someone to stand directly on that without any support. Nearing the end of last week, I had done some cleaning in here, and I found this little charred spot here because a piece of the linoleum had popped up. So what I'm thinking the best course of action now is to grind up all the rest of the linoleum, see if there's any more pieces that are damaged like this, or if the linoleum's covering up a hole or something like that. I had already pulled off the nails out of here a while back. Looks like I missed one there. So I think that's the next course. Let's get this all exposed and see what else we need to do. All right, so we have a little bit of a treat for you guys this week. My friend Matthew helped me out hanging doors, and he runs his own construction company. And they finished a job early, so some of his labor became available. And this is Bentley.
Hello.
So he's gonna be with us for a couple weeks, and if I can keep him longer, I probably will. So Bentley's doing a really cool thing for his career path, and we'll get into that next week. So tune back in next week and you'll find out.
Peace.
So Bentley, my loaned labor, ran around and polished all the windowsills, and then he started working in on those doors. And it really shows just how much time it takes to do the polying process, man. I keep harping on that. It just takes so much time. And while he was working on that, I've been working on patching floors still. So you can see all these planks here that were put in, and it's all because there were just a bunch of holes. And then over here, I cut this out because we're doing a toe kick heater underneath the sink basin here. And I want to be able to run the water lines down into the basement, and then we'll put a union in so that it makes the unit removable. All right, so I cut this section out of the cabinet, and right up behind here, I doubled this section back, and I put a 5/4 by 1 3/4 block from each side of the cabinet all the way across, just to strengthen this up a bit, because cutting this all out really weakens the cabinet. So you want to make sure you fix that in. And this is the unit right here. Now this faceplate will go over where we cut out, and then you have your switch right there. And here's another section of flooring that was patched in. I put these 3 planks in. They just didn't come close enough to the wall for the baseboard to cover up. And now I'm working on that door threshold. That'll go in right here, but it's gonna cover up the leading edge of the LVP that we put in a couple weeks back. So typically your flooring has this land here and would have another one right here. I went ahead and milled that off, and I milled the tongue off and did a round over, so you have a nice smooth transition and not a toe biter. And then you have your flooring that the LVP is, right? And then that will slide right in into that groove that I created, and so that this board stays nice and level. I want to take a moment to talk about why I waited so long to refinish or finish the timber frame. And there's multiple reasons. Number one, top of the list, is that I didn't want to waste my time. If I took the time to sand this all the way down and make sure that it was 100% as smooth as I wanted it to be, and all the splintery bits were off, what would end up happening is that during construction, sheetrocking, flooring, yada, 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 the timber frame is going to get nicked and it's going to get damaged. And then I'd have to resand it and repoly it. Now, chances are that repolying isn't going to quite match. So there's that. And you can see these wicked cracks that are happening, right? Now, I can get some poly into this and make sure that the face of that stays protected as well. And this is totally normal. Don't freak out. This is normal. Whenever you're working with timbers, they're going to crack, okay? So don't worry about that. So I want to make sure that when it did crack, it didn't leave a bunch of jagged poly on the edge of it too. There's that. And aesthetically, what I really enjoy about waiting for this whole thing is that you can see the circular saw marks more evident. And I really wanted to preserve that look. That's why I went with rough cut. Otherwise, I would have had them completely planed and smoothed out. I didn't want them to be 100% glass smooth like we did with all the trim. I wanted to be able to see that circular saw marks. And by allowing the timber to patina over all this time of it being erected in here, it changed color. So it turned that kind of darker yellow color that pine does. And that darker yellow color is now represented in those saw marks. So that's why I did that. That will just about do it. Thank you for stopping by High Peaks Home.